Thank you all so much for coming to this important collaborative discussion about protecting public education. On behalf of the Utica Teachers Association, welcome to our schools. My name is Victoria Stutzenstein-Mancad. I am one of the 8th grade technology teachers at Donovan Middle School. I'm also a Utica Teachers Association building rep. As an educator, we are so grateful to have somebody who understands our everyday professional struggles and the needs of our public educator systems in Congress. We know that John will be fighting strongly in all attempts to weaken our public education system. I hope for an engaging conversation this evening. In this room, we have an impressive coalition of people. There are educators, parents, students, and community members all here to discuss how to protect and strengthen our public schools amidst rising federal and local challenges. We hope that this forum will be a chance for people from across the district to share their firsthand experiences and insights as students, educators, and families, highlight the most urgent needs facing local schools, and to examine how these challenges connect to broader trends in education. You will have the opportunity to ask questions, learn from each other, and explore concrete steps the community can take together to ensure every child has access to a safe, well-resourced, and highly qualified public education. And this Back to School Forum is part of the Public Education Alliance's national series to highlight the importance of public schools and mobilize local advocacy. One of the co-sponsors of this forum is the Education Alliance. Their mission is to support and enhance the public education system, ensuring a brighter future for all students. I feel incredibly privileged to be opening up this event that is being co-sponsored by Congressman John Mannion. John is a former educator. For nearly 3 decades, John was in the classroom teaching AP biology and chemistry. He was a proud member of his union and ultimately the local president of the West Genesee Teachers Association. Since his first election to the state Senate and subsequently to Congress, one thing has remained consistent: his staunch support of public education. He has stood strongly in opposition to vouchers and any effort to privatize public education. Instead, he believes in investing in public schools, expanding universal pre-kindergarten, improving teacher pay and benefits, and protecting our most vulnerable children. It is now my privilege to introduce Heather Concepcion. She is the Student Council President at Thomas R. Proctor High School, and she is a wonderful example of a Utica City School District student striving and achieving her dreams. We are so proud to be kicking off this event, a joint collaboration between Public Education Alliance and Congressman John Mannion.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Donovan Middle School. My name is Heather Concepcion. I'm a proud Utica Raider and the Student Council President at Thomas R. Proctor High School. Now, I didn't realize being Student Council President meant I had to show up at night over the summer. Am I at least getting extra credit for this? But in all seriousness, I'm honored to help introduce Representative John Mannion for his Back to School Forum. We'll also be hearing from some of our leaders in the district, including school board members Tennille Noob and James Paul. This forum is important for our community, and it's an invaluable experience for students like me. Like so many communities across the Mohawk Valley, in Utica, we love our schools. And I believe they reflect the very best of our city. We are taught by amazing teachers who care about our success, and I feel lucky to have classmates from every corner around the world who speak many languages and bring traditions that enrich the schooling experience. According to New York State Education Department, the Utica City School District serves about 9,000 students, and 16% are English language learners like myself. That's because we serve such a large and diverse community for refugees and new Americans. We know our challenges and we meet them head on. Many families are working hard to make ends meet, and our schools step up because that's what Utica does. State Ed lists Utica as a high-need district, with the vast majority of students considered economically disadvantaged. Still, our teachers, staff, and families show up, lift each other up, and keep us moving forward together. It's with this backdrop that we're here tonight for a community discussion about the state of education in Utica, across the Mohawk Valley, in the New York State, and around the country. I asked you to join me in a thoughtful conversation with the Congressman. He knows about education policy. Before going to Washington, he spent nearly 3 decades as a public school science teacher. He knows the ins and outs. In the New York State Senate, he chaired the Disability Committee, promoting inclusion and support for people with disabilities. Now in Congress, he represents NY District 22, which includes Utica, and serves on the Education and Workforce Committee. As students, we're grateful to be part of this discussion about how to protect and strengthen public education. As a community, we're honored to host. Please join me in giving a warm Utica welcome to our Congressman John Mannion.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I really appreciate it. And, as somebody who hasn't had the opportunity to represent Oneida County, I want to make sure that you know that I'm very intentional and care very much about making sure that everyone feels represented. And I've got a few thank yous here before we get started. First of all, we'll have some school board members join us in a second. I want to recognize them, Tennille Knoop and James Paul. James, who I've had many conversations with over the course of more than a year now as we've gotten to know each other. I want to thank Superintendent Spence and Assistant Superintendent Falchi, as well as Administrator Ferrara, for hosting us tonight. I really do appreciate the warm welcome and allowing us to have this setting. Thank you to all the students and family members, parents that are out there that are here tonight, teachers as well, and other school staff if you're with us. Thank you to Heather Concepcion. It's students like Heather that I had the honor of teaching for almost 30 years that are inspiring, that make it easy to go to work. I say this all the time. I had the greatest job in the world for 30 years. I absolutely loved it. Every day I would get up and go to work, and you learn so much from those kids. It's the most rewarding job that you can have. And I taught AP Biology and Chemistry. I also taught 15-to-1 living environment for a very long time. I got to teach students in a private setting at Christian Brothers Academy in Syracuse, at Nottingham High School for 4 years, and then for about 20 years at West Genesee High School. One of the great things about teaching is not just having those kids come back and saying thank you and, remember this moment, or, you helped me figure out what I wanted to do with my life. It's much more than that, because the relationships that you develop with them are much deeper. So I see a former student almost every day as I'm out there running around, and it's great to see all the things that they've accomplished. I was just talking with Heather behind the curtain here, and she asked why I did this. I think she said it in a nice way. I said it a little harsher there. But, why'd you get into this? And for me, I loved my job, as I just said, but I watched challenges happen with fair funding in the early 2010s, and watched how tough decisions had to be made by school districts. And also, we were going through a 3-through-8 testing change and a teacher evaluation change. And for the people that worked in the classrooms, and I worked with them, I saw a real impact on them. It was one of those examples of kind of like a top-down, policy and funding that was really negatively impactful on teachers and therefore on kids. And I watched that. It was pretty chaotic for a few years. That's what got me inspired to honestly advocate for public education in Albany and the reason that I ran for state senate, and then eventually, after winning that and getting reelected, running for Congress. So some of my work in the state, I chaired the Senate Committee on Disabilities, and in that committee, I had the opportunity to work on a lot of bipartisan pieces of legislation that were enacted into law that did impact, individuals with disabilities, including children with disabilities, in support for some of our schools that are directly targeted towards serving that community. And a lot of that support was passed, those bills were passed unanimously in committee and unanimously on the floor. I fought hard to fully fund the foundation aid formula. I also fought to have reasonable changes to the teacher evaluation system and to de-emphasize the testing. So I was in office for 4 years in the state, and I had really those 3 priorities related to public education. We got those things done. But beyond that, we also expanded universal school meals to a lot more districts in upstate New York. We expanded universal pre-K to many other districts, as we want to make sure that our kids come to school early, that they're under the guidance of trained professionals. And then at the other end of that spectrum, I fought for support for our community colleges and our SUNY schools in the higher ed system, but also securing record funding, in fact, doubling the funding for apprenticeship programs for the Manufacturers Alliance of Central New York, and many of our local manufacturers here all across NY22 participate in that program. So I'm proud of those things. As I've been into Congress, I get to sit on the Education and Workforce Committee, and my first piece of legislation that I introduced, I had great concerns about the dismantling of the Department of Education. So my first bill that I submitted was the Protecting Students with Disabilities Act, which would make sure that funding for our school districts for individuals with disabilities, that commitment that was made to them in the IDEA that was enacted over 50 years ago, that funding would come to our school districts, and that department would, or that sub-department would remain in the Department of Education. I'm also co-sponsor of the Department of Education Protection Act, which is supposed to make sure that the Department of Ed remains in place. As I mentioned, it's one of my highest priorities to make sure that we all need supports in schools, and those individuals with IEPs or 504 plans get those necessary supports. So I am a co-sponsor of the IDEA Full Funding Act. As I mentioned, the commitment that the federal government is supposed to have to our students with disabilities, they're supposed to fund to our school districts 40% of the cost of funding that individualized education. That number is only at 14% and has rarely ever gone over that number. And then other pieces of legislation, including the RAISE Act and the Teachers Are Leaders Act, which is to improve teacher pay and support our veteran teachers so that they can support our newer teachers and expand professional development opportunities. So there's some things happening in education right now that have great concern to me, and a lot of that does involve cuts to funding. I'm not going to go into every detail here, but I'll talk about a few, which is that under the new Department of Education Secretary, Linda McMahon, she is looking to consolidate 7 IDEA programs into a single block grant that would go to the states. And the concern there is that when we put that funding into block grants, the protections are not necessarily there to make sure that that funding is going to go to those students that it was intended for, and to the amount that is needed, so that we can not only have co-teaching with a special education teacher in a classroom with a teacher of a certain tenure background, but also that we have enough teacher aides and teaching assistants in the classroom to be supported, so that those kids have every opportunity to achieve their independence, be successful. And I got to see that and the success of that when I was in the classroom. So those are some things that are of concern to me. This current administration, after dollars had been appropriated but not delivered, have withheld nearly $7 billion in K through 12 funding nationwide, and that impacts New York State schools to the tune of $400 million. School boards, school administrators have to plan budgets years in advance, and when they do that, they count on federal funding and expected funding, and the challenges that happen when that promise is broken ends up creating chaos and difficult decisions to be made. So I opposed the cancellation of that funding. I opposed the cancellation of some school-based mental health grants, including at the Syracuse City School District, a $5 million grant to make sure that our schools, those schools, can address the mental health needs of our students. Our school counselors, school psychologists, and social workers do a fantastic job. It's been my experience over the 30 years in the classroom that the need has grown, and therefore school districts have made the commitment to staffing so that we can make connections with those kids early on when they're having challenging mental health issues. So those are the things that we want to support. And some of that funding that I talked about being cut, we successfully pushed back. Again, in a bipartisan way, members from both sides of the aisle said we don't want these cuts to our schools, and fortunately that funding was restored. So tonight is about listening and hearing your concerns. We've got a lot of things going on in education. Certainly a big thing has to do with cell phones. And I taught before cell phones, I taught after, and I prefer before, honestly. But parents are used to being able to communicate with their kids, and some kids can be very responsible with it. But there's so many elements of it beyond distractibility that can be a challenge. So that's something, making sure that parents have access to their kids' grades, the teachers' curricula. It's been my experience over the course of my 30 years in a classroom that there's greater access for those things. I talked about the mental health, and then making sure that our schools have the opportunity, the flexibility, and the funding so that kids can figure out early on what their passion is. Doesn't have to be a pathway through a four-year college. There's so many programs that are community colleges, that are BOCES, that are private entities that are out there already, that our labor unions work on to get kids inspired, exposed to different really great pathways that are out there. And I think we're doing a better job of that in our schools and exposing kids earlier on and to a variety of different things so that they can find their passion. So listen, I thank you all for coming here tonight. I appreciate a robust discussion. And with that, I do want to bring out our two school board members. We're going to sit up here. Some members of my team are going to pass around the microphone. We'll answer any question you have. If there's any questions you have that we can't answer, I promise that either myself or a member of my team will get back to you with that answer. And with that, I'm looking forward to a productive discussion here with everybody, and I'm going to bring out our two school board members, which would be Tennille Knoop and James Paul. Thank you, Tennille.
Let's get you on the floor. My name is Tennille Knoop. I've been on the school board for 3 years beside Mr. Paul. Education has always been something that is incredibly important. I work in the field of education myself, so I see the lives that it can change and the possibilities that it has. I've always been incredibly passionate about this district. I have 3 children in this district, so I've always been involved since they came here in kindergarten till now, when my son's a senior and about to graduate. I believe that education is one of the most important things that we can have in our country. I'm a firm believer of, if you want a strong country, you educate your people. And the more education that you can provide them, the stronger your country can become. So education has always been something that's on the forefront for me and something that I've always been passionate of, something that I believe that our students always need more access to. And one of the great things about education and working in education is that it's always changing, right? We're always learning. Just like in education our students are learning, so are we. And that's the best part about being in education, is learning from one another and continuing to grow and to change that platform to fit the needs.
Great job. Good evening, everyone. I'm James Paul, board member as well. Tennille and I came on the board together 3 years ago. Education is extremely important to me. I've been educating or fighting for education for our urban kids since 2000. I understand the need. I understand that we've got some great staff and teachers in our buildings that do the same fight. We fight fight together to make this district so much better than people think that we should be. We're a great district. I believe that, as Tennille said, if we continue to fight this fight together, we can go so much further with educating our kids. We've had some great changes in the 3 years that we've been here. We've done some great things. We've worked with some great people. Now we've got Congressman Mannion here in our district with that same fight. So I appreciate everyone being here. I thank you. And let's continue to fight for the Utica City School District.
So in education and workforce, listen, I'm a strong advocate for public education. I believe it's a great equalizer, and I've got tremendous amount of evidence to watch what has happened positively with kids in my classroom, and that's at all levels. And sometimes it's not something that you can get a data point for. It's that kid that has had a hard day, or that kid that has had several days in a row where you as a teacher see that something has changed, and you try to provide a little bit of guidance to that kid. And if they're willing to share, what's going on, or to be flexible, yet maintain your standards of your classroom. So in the past few months in education and workforce, what we've seen are changes like, I'm going to go into the higher education space here for a second, changes to our Pell Grant programs and changes to our student loan programs in the interest of saving money. And listen, I understand that, but when you talk about students, like in this state, I'm a SUNY grad, okay, and I went to SUNY Binghamton in 1986. My tuition was $1,250. I had a great education. We're keeping some of that SUNY tuition as low as we can so that students can achieve anything. But we're at a time where we have these advanced degrees, like in healthcare, that are necessary. We want to make sure that our kids, whatever that is that they see as their passion, are exposed to it, and then can achieve whatever they want to. But I've watched the changes in the Pell Grants and the limiting of how much money can borrow, and I wish they didn't have to borrow that much, but there's not even the opportunity with these changes to the grants and the student loan programs that are going to be, problematic, I would say. But what I'm looking forward, not forward to, but what I'm seeing on the horizon is that we're going to see a rescissions package coming. So that means that dollars that were already appropriated in the previous Congress and were voted on by the Senate, the House, and signed into law, that some of those dollars for public education related to mental health, related to apprenticeship programs, teacher support programs, that they are going to come with a package of cuts to those appropriated dollars. And I will say this, not to get too much into the weeds or even to be political, the president has put out executive orders on these cuts and the dismantling of public education. And a response to that is a legal process to go through the courts. Sometimes that takes time. Now, I may disagree with what happened in the legislation of the bill that was passed, the budget bill, and I may disagree with the rescissions package that might be coming that, again, is going to make it harder for our school districts to make sure that they keep class sizes down, that they offer advanced courses, that they offer courses and teachers to support students who need a little bit of help, including students that have an IEP. But at least it is following the legislative process. You know, I may disagree, but it's following the process. And I have to be, you know, when we talk about who passed those, that funding in the past, it was with a president that was in the Democratic Party, a Senate that was in the Republican majority, and a House that was in the Republican majority. So was a bipartisan way to say, we're going to agree that this is what our school districts need, and now there very well could be changes, and those changes are going to come through my committee. So, you know, it's not all negative, but I disagree with those things because I'm a true believer in public schools, but also there is an emphasis on, you know, apprenticeship programs and trying to meet the needs of the American workforce. And I've already had an effort in the state to make sure that we have the ability to do that when people want a second career or otherwise. You know, in New York State right now, if you are in a high needs, high demand area of the workforce, between the ages of 25 and 55, our community colleges are out there offering a wide range of different programs, cost-free, to meet those needs of the workforce. And it's very exciting, and I wasn't there in office in the state when the government made that announcement, but I support it for sure. So that's some of the things that are on the horizon.
We'll have you stand up in the middle, and if you could just project. The microphone seems to be dueling with each other.
I have to say who I am?
You can introduce yourself if you'd like
I know who
to
you are.
ask your question.
Unfortunately. I'm Yvonne Irvin. I just have a question. I hear both of you say that you're really interested in making changes, and the district has done a lot of great things. Could you, for those of us that aren't in the building, could you just let us know what are some of the great things that you have changed? Because I know the district, the population of the students has changed dramatically. So you said you do a lot of great things, so could you tell us what great things have you done? Just maybe 2 great things that you did, okay?
So I think one of the things that we'll talk about too is before James and I came on, the school was closed. There wasn't anybody, any agencies that could come in, and we knew that our students needed these agencies. We knew, yes, we could provide the education and our teachers could do everything that they could, but at the end of the day, there were no more needs that needed to be met. So we worked together and helped, and we created what's now known as the system of care, which didn't exist. And so with this, we brought in ICANN, Safe Schools, all of these programs to come in to work directly with our students, so now they can be in-house and have access and kind of help when we have those students that have other things that we can't offer. Because as we know, mental health is incredibly important, and to be able to provide those services. Some of the times I have an analogy, and I try to say sometimes our district, it's like a divorced parent. So students come here and they're coming from a home maybe that wasn't that great. And they're met with loving teachers, they're met with breakfast, so they're cared for all day. We have clothes, right? So we have all this systems set in house. We have food banks now in the schools that allow children and set them up so that they're going home for the weekends and the evening with food when we know they're not gonna have enough. We supply that. We supply healthcare when it's not there. We have PAs that come in to help give physicals for our students when they're not able to receive it at home with a doctor. So we do all of these things to get it done, but at the end of the day, when they're in our care and they're with these teachers and they're in this warm, loving environment filled with education and needs, at the end of the day, we send them back home. So we send them back home to that other partner that maybe isn't that great. And at the next day when they return, we have to do it all over again. And that's on our teachers. Slowly on our teachers, on our principals, and everybody that's working in that district. And so having those other community agencies involved really helps us to foster more of that need.
Something that I'm proud of is the Hillside Work Scholarship Connection Program. I actually managed that program. I was the first manager in Syracuse, the Syracuse City School District, from 2000 to 2005. they put in place a lot of services that our kids need. They wrap their arms around these kids. They're the liaison between the school district and the home. So some of the things, like Tanil was saying, that our kids need that they get at school, those advocates are going to support that need at home. So bringing them into the district as one of those community-based agencies, I think is a win for us, because we've got more people that are engaged and willing to work at building our youth. Seeing our youth thrive, being in the school districts, hands-on with kids from middle school to high school, and providing supports that won't pull from our teachers. So allowing our teachers to teach, freeing up some time, doing some of the ancillary things to make those better students, to build those relationships at home, I think is something that I'm really proud that we have in the district. And I think the district in a few years will see the change.
Thank you both, but I'm going to say this. I got to go to my administrators, my student, and my teachers with a quick hit of an answer for Ms. Irvin. Heather, what has improved in the last 2 years or 4 years since you've been in high school?
Okay. I say the resources that are available to us, because I remember when I was younger, there weren't as much as like outreach programs or just places that could help me feel inclusive. And I feel like, they did a trip to New York over the summer, and that was just a really fun experience, because not many people get to go out on summer vacations or just go out and have fun. So I feel like those programs really help students.
And one thing I'll say, some of the things that were mentioned here about community schools and access to, very basic and elementary health care, and I do believe from my conversations with the superintendent that we have a piece of that in at least one of our schools. Anybody else want to yell? Yes. You read, sure, yes.
So,
yes, Kirsten.
as a teacher in the district, I think that what Tanil was talking about was a huge part of helping us help our students, because we have those partnerships and we've built relationships with the ICANN workers and Safe Schools. And so we have someone else to go to. Our social workers are often tied up in meetings, and yes, they're a valuable resource, but these people are there just for the kids. And there's always some little sticking points, but having somebody that you can go to and say, this is what I'm seeing, what are you seeing, and having that conversation so that we can both work together to help the kids is huge.
Any other quick answer on that? Yes, Superintendent.
Yeah, so one of the things that we did, in addition to providing the wraparound support for our students, was we made a strategic investment in our after-school programming aimed at supporting our neediest students, social-emotionally as well as academically. So from 3:15 to 6:15, from the about February-ish, January-ish, we were able to provide our students with a safe space to learn and grow, as well as meals. Now, we did this work in concert with our teachers, with our support staff, that really wrapped our arms around our students to make sure that we can push the needle and move it forward. In addition to that, we've made a very structural and symbolic investment in our communities by initiating the Utica Reads program. We have structurally positioned literacy boxes in each one of our communities, calling on volunteers from the community to help staff those boxes with books so that we can promote literacy more broadly, as well as a focus in the district, as well as within the community. Similar to that, we've created an organizational shift in regards to our Utica GEMS program, really aimed at highlighting the gems, focusing on the qualities of our district that we know to be great. High quality teaching, other people going above and beyond to wrap our arms around our young people to make sure that we're moving forward. We didn't even talk about the one-on-one replacement cycle for our student devices. We have that, and then the most jarring and the most beautiful thing is the expansion of our CTE pathways. So we're looking at two factors primarily. We're looking at occupational attainment, post-secondary outcomes. We are also looking at expanding educational opportunities within the system. By having a CTE pathways that provides a myriad of pathways for students to learn and grow and pursue, we are one, aligned with the New York State Portrait of a Graduate, but we are also making sure that our students who have different interests can fulfill their hopes and desires as they're navigating our system. And this is just phase one. We have the Utica wins document that is listed on the district website that highlights all the operational and instructional wins that we have done to transform the system. Now, I caution to speak prematurely, but the preliminary data that we have show that we have made market gains, progress academically, showing that the system is moving in the right direction. We've also, from a behavioral standpoint, we understand that our young people come to us in a variety of ways with a variety of talents, but also some of it's baggage. So we really took a good look at our disciplinary referrals. We've tracked that data. We've worked with our legal counsel to develop a superintendent's agreement to really work to provide our students with another opportunity to do school with added supports, which is an agreement between the district, the superintendent, and our parents. And we've seen growth there in regards to our key performance indicators. Everything that we are doing as a district has been aligned with metrics. We are metrics-based. We are looking at the quantifiable evidence to determine our efficacy as we move forward, and we are progress monitoring. This last year was year one. That was designed to lay the foundation to yield greater results. We're now going into year two, where we're really focusing on how do we educate our young people, given the supports that we have. What I mentioned at the last board meeting that we had, I think it was the last one. We had a lot, so I think it's the last one. But I mentioned our instructional goals. So we worked with our administrators, we looked at our data to really develop an instructional focus that is in line with the DTSDE framework for organizational success. It's New York State's framework. We're looking at systems and organization, school leadership, curriculum, instruction, social emotional learning, and parent and family and community engagement. All of those tenets that have outlined what a district should be measured by in regards to success, we have adopted and developed goals based on last year's data points. So now we are better positioned as an organization to collectively and collaboratively walk together as we tackle some of those things. So it's going to be a very exciting year. We look forward to collaborating with our teachers, utilizing the committees that we have at our disposal. We look forward to analyzing and looking at the data to help us make strategic and efficient moves as we're educating our young people. So thank you.
That was a great opening day speech, Superintendent. I've heard a lot of them, too.
Good to see you again. I'm Colt Brum. I live up in the Barnaville, Holland-Patton area. I actually just got elected to the Holland-Patton School Board. My question for you is, as I think about things sometimes I tend to philosophize, and so I think every cloud, dark cloud has a silver lining, and bright clouds have dark linings and that sort of stuff. So the bright cloud of you getting elected to Congress brought with it the unfortunate dark lining of the fact that we then lost a tremendous education advocate in the state Senate. Congratulations and all, but sure. When you're done with that, can you come back and...
This is not my cousin either.
On the other side of things, dark cloud, very dark cloud, silver lining. So with the annihilation, basically, at this point, of the Federal Department of Education to being something approaching zero at this point, the silver lining of that, if you can find one, is that then presents the opportunity to build anew a Department of Education building on the experience we had with kind of stuff built on stuff before. So in your mind, when we are able to change things and actually start building the Department of Education back, what do you think? What does that look like? What does a 21st century Department of Education look like?
Yeah, and others may want to answer here. First of all, my kids benefited from public education, and I won't go into details, but I watched how early intervention can really have an impact. So I'm going to stay in the dark space here, which is that, difficult decisions already have to be made regarding staffing and students who have, IEPs and specialized supports. That's what I'm really worried about. I'm really worried about that in the short term, because these are the years where these kids need that support, and that can put them on a good pathway. And it's not just kids, with IEPs or 504 plans. It's kids that have just greater challenges because they could be coming the one data point that almost always connects is when you have high rates of poverty, you have lower rates of graduation because of the dramatic impact that being the trauma that comes with poverty. So listen, states do have a lot of control over how education works. Even though I'm a huge proponent of public education, I believe when it comes to graduation requirements, there needs to be a greater level of flexibility and let school districts do what works for them. And I do think that when I talk to kids, and I talk to them for a long time, they feel kind of like stacked into that schedule, 7th grade through 12th grade. It makes it tough. So my hope is that when we get through this, that the elements of the Department of Education that are absolutely necessary to make sure that funds are there for our special education students and that there are funds there that are directly targeted, Title I funds towards communities of poverty so that kids can achieve that goal. I hope that that's maintained through the dark times. And then the brighter times is, not only am I a proponent of public education, I want teachers to be able to do in their classroom what works for them, what they know inspires kids. And I watch and get to see that I saw it for years. So teacher empowerment is a big part of this for me. And I hope that when we get through all of this, that teachers are more empowered and that the profession is attractive, because it's a great profession. It's fantastic, it's rewarding, there's so many positives. And I know that the district has challenges with recruitment because it's across the whole state. And that's really tough to hear. And I do think that for those of us that were in the teaching profession, that went through some of the changes that I mentioned, that we were some of the greatest supporters of, hey, you had a tough day, younger teacher. Go home this weekend, do whatever you got to do, but come back and remember why you got into this. And I think we're losing some of those new folks as a result of it because the climate and the environment has changed a little bit. It's been a little bit tougher. Now, I don't know if that answers your question. I'm not here to redesign something that hasn't been dismantled, but I'm just hopeful that the people that really need the support and the districts that need the support don't get hurt. And for me, that means poverty, kids with a disability, and folks that are in the high need space, that need intensive support because of mental health, because of substance abuse at home, whatever it might be. And teachers are being asked to do more than ever before, and they're doing it. They're doing it, meeting the needs of their community.
All right, we've got 4 in the queue, so we'll go second row, second in from the right. Yep.
Hi, I'm Julia. So you mentioned the IEPs and special ed. My daughter had, and I'll talk about my personal story, but I'm sure that there's many others who have experienced the same thing. She had an IEP in preschool, but that was also during COVID. So she didn't get many of the services that she was supposed to. So there's while a lot of kids have been resilient with that,
Yeah.
my daughter has not been. Then we also fall into the problem where now we go from preschool special education to grade school special education, and she doesn't meet any of the categories. It's just, it feels really frustrating that we haven't been able to get. I've been doing as much as I can myself, paying for it,
Right.
but I don't know. She can't be the only one where there's that gap. How might we fill it?
Yeah, that's a great question, and obviously there's some specificity there. Myself, as a parent and a teacher, and somebody said who on both sides of the table at CPSE and CSE meetings, is you are an integral part of that, and you have rights, and your child has rights, and you can always call a CSE meeting, and there's advocacy groups out there to do it as well.
I'm I'm
Yeah.
very, very much involved in all of that. Like, we've had 5 CSE meetings. You've got a 504. but-
Yes. So, listen, not knowing the specifics, that would be the first thing that I would say. I do know that coming out of the pandemic, we tried to provide school districts with additional support. Some of that was federal to make sure that we addressed the learning loss that happened. Obviously, that's a very difficult time for your child that needs that intensive early intervention. I advocated in New York State for increase in reimbursement rates for our providers for early intervention, and I know that our administrators would let you know that it's probably harder and harder to find those folks to come in that CPSE setting to provide it. So, I always say this, again, our office is here to help. I've dealt as a state senator and as a member of Congress. Our office is here to help with advocacy when it comes to education, when it gets into that space. I do trust the professionals and I trust the process, and I don't know, where your kid lives and where you live and all of that stuff. But I do think that you're the best advocate, and you've got a lot of supporting advocates around, and I would utilize those as best you can to get, what you believe or what is on paper to say what your kid deserves.
And then I would just say thank you for continuing to advocate for the idea of funding, like you said, making sure the funding is there.
Yeah, what my worry is, we're going to dump a block grant to the states, and then we're going to have a Hunger Games around this state, and then Hunger Games within, regional BOCES or school districts, and that's not good for kids. That's not good for kids. That's why the law was passed and the funding was dedicated to allow our school professionals to be able to determine what services are going to best serve that kid, and then make sure the funding's there to support.
Go front row here, sir, t-shirt.
Stefan.
Hello,
Stefan.
Congressman Mannion. I'm Stefan, or Stefan, as he said.
Okay.
My question is, does Utica City School District encourage the kids to take part in extracurricular activities like sports, music, art, anything like that? Because it distracts the kids at the time taking part in extracurricular activities, and it gets them out off the streets and onto the playing field or playing music. How does the Utica City School District handle extracurricular activities?
Well, I think the superintendent did a pretty good job of answering. It was very inspiring to hear about the after-school program, but I'll pass it on. Obviously, there's no better thing a politician wants to do than to answer a question about something he knows nothing about. So I will pass it on to whomever wants to take that.
Stefan. So as you know, in the city, there's not a lot for our youth to do here. We've lost a lot of programs, we lost the Boys and Girls Club, we've lost a lot of things. So one of the things that we did 2 years ago was to start intramurals. So we started them over the summertime. So over summer, we bring our coaches in and we offer all types of different sports camps all day, so that it keeps our students still coming to the school. We offered all types of extra special summer programs this summer to give students also something to do. So some of that includes art, some is music. Last year, the drama department did an entire production over the summer, and all of these are outside of school hours that we offer. We also did over the winter to keep them off the streets. We did a basketball program on the weekends. So we encourage our students greatly to take part. We have a number of clubs and a number of activities and sports, because you are correct, our students need to be busy and it's a great distraction for them.
We've also expanded our sports, some of the sports that we offer, our offerings rather. We've actually partnered with local districts if we didn't have a sport as well, so that some of those kids that are doing maybe wrestling, let's take wrestling, partner with another district because we don't have a wrestling team, to allow kids in our district to do that. But we want a holistic approach to education. We want to be able to offer things outside of academics for our kids. So if there's something that they want to do, if it's arts, some STEM programming, those kind of things. We encourage our kids to ask. We encourage them to go to their teachers, to their administrators, to see if we can kind of work together to get those things in place for them. Families as well.
All right, we'll go to the black vest on the end, and then we'll go to the tan vest next, okay?
Hi, Howard Potter. It's more informational. Back in 2017, I was on the Teacher Center Committee, and I was very fortunate to work with Anthony Brindisi back then. The funding, because I was on the financial side, was only about $35,000, and working with them during the state budget, he was able to get that bumped to $80,000. That's still not enough when you have 600, 700 teachers, guidance counselors, because that's also when they get, I think, their 100 hours they got to get in with so many years. And I would love to see us to have some type of financial benefit to kind of fast track that, because that's the orientation and support that the teachers need. On the back side of that, one of the things that I see, even as a business owner, we have our teachers starting out between $44,000 and $46,000, $48,000. After their educational costs, their health care, 5% mandated to their retirement, and then the taxes out of their paycheck, they're barely bringing home $20,000 to $22,000. If we don't get their pay between $55,000 and $60,000 starting out, they can't afford to work for us.
Yeah. Listen, I'm with you. I'm a strong supporter of teacher centers and fought in my 4 years in the state Senate to increase funding to those centers. And prior to that, I believe there was at least 1 year where it was cut to zero. I think there was zero funding out of the state for our teacher centers. That's when I was in the classroom at that time and going down and advocating. So listen, we see what other countries do in the support of our teachers. We want to draw people into this profession, and a lot of people will give me a pat on the back like, I don't know how you did it for 30 years, and the teachers would go, it's the best thing. There's some really tough times and some challenging things, but it's really rewarding. But you don't want to discourage that from kids getting in, and I think that our teacher prep colleges around the area do a good job of getting kids into the classroom early to see if they like it. There's tough decisions to be made. I certainly felt like I was compensated fairly when I taught. But again, this is a profession worth supporting, and supporting it in a number of different ways. So I'm with you on that. I don't know if anybody has anything. Yeah, we'll keep moving.
So, my name is Crystal Berenger, and I've been a school librarian here in Utica for 30 years, actually at Donovan for the last 5. And my question is really maybe going to be towards our board members, because as a school librarian, one of my main concerns is First Amendment, which is being attacked. The words diversity, equity, and inclusion are never just words to me and other school librarians. We want collections that reflect our students' needs, wants, and desires. So I have books on the shelves for my students of color, my students that don't speak English, my students with disabilities, my LGBTQ identifying students, and I just want to make sure, because in other states there's already been at least one librarian, several actually, who've been targeted by the government and by parents groups that our school board believes in the First Amendment and the right and the freedoms of school librarians and teachers to use the materials that they deem appropriate for the students that they know and teach every day.
So if there's a book that's on the ban list, I'm reading it because there's a reason. So I'm a strong advocate for that. I'm also an English professor, so I'm a huge believer in literature and what it provides. And I think people fail to recognize how hard it is to get students to go to the library to check out a book and how much we're encouraging them to read. Well, so to be able to do that, right, that means you have a strong connection with your students and you're able to take something and connect it to them, which is why we're reading to begin with, right? It's not something that we have to do unless a teacher, right, forces us to do it. But the fact that they're picking up a book and they're invested in those words on the page, they're seeking something within themselves and they're looking to connect with something in that book, which is precisely why it was written. So you have my full support.
This is a fantastic district. I'm gonna be honest with you. When we talk about diversity, we can't be afraid of allowing our kids to dream, to see themselves, to read about themselves, to know where they came from, to know what the possibilities are, to know what to fight for, who to embrace. I think this district does a good job at that. And until it's brought to us as a board to make a decision, I think you guys have the opportunity to do what's right, to do what you think is right. And until you hear it from the board or the superintendent, I think you guys are in a great space to encourage that growth, to encourage the kids that you see in your school and in your library to seek whatever it is that they're looking for. And I don't think we're up here to tell you that that's not the case or it will ever be the case. We're going to fight for it.
And I don't really think, I don't want to speak for the board, but I'm just going to say in general, just knowing all my board members that we sit with, I can't imagine that there'd be any of them. I mean, the fact that they ran to sit in a seat that represents a school as diverse as this is because they're passionate about that. So I really don't think that you'd have too many board members that would support that anyway. So I think you're good.
And I just want to say, as a teacher, as a parent, and as somebody who represented teachers as a union president while I was still teaching, if a parent has something of concern, they're going to hear it, and they're going to hear it. And then that's why that working relationship between the board, administration, teachers, and parents, and students is critical, that we get it right. And I will say this. I'm proud to be from the area of the state that I'm from. I'm proud to be from the state too. And again, the city of Utica and the surrounding area and Syracuse as well, it's hard to find a more diverse and robust cultural setting than what we have here. And we're proud of it. It's part of our tradition. We continue that tradition, and trying to bring us in an opposite direction of that is just in opposition to our DNA, I think.
So we're getting close to the end of the session. I've got 2 more questions for everybody, and then we'll wrap things up. So first we'll go to the second row here, and then we will conclude with the woman in the blue here.
Thank you. My name is Jay Riley. The only question I would like to know is, what happens to the money that the lottery takes that's supposed to be going to fund the schools? The last time I saw it was like something B. What happens to that money? Where do we go?
The lottery dollars do come to the schools, but there is, my father, who would have been 100 3 days ago, who played the lottery, used to talk about it, right? So the state of New York, of which, I have some responsibility in, and we would advocate for it, there's some fuzzy math and some general fund shifting when it comes to those lottery dollars. It was purely intended, as it was sold, as that. It is not, it still does flow, but it doesn't go in the manner in which it was marketed as such, is my understanding. And I don't have a great answer. I do know that some of it goes into the general fund. Do I dare, Dr. Timms? So with us tonight is Dr. Rick Timms, who may be, when it comes to school budgeting, you may not have anyone here with greater experience and background, and we're blessed to have him in the area, and he presents to legislators and superintendents and others at least once a year in the region, sometimes more. Do you want to answer that?
Sure. Money is collected through the lottery. Obviously, there's a cost of running the lottery, which is taken out. Winner's costs are taken out. The money goes into the general fund of the state. And then what it does is it supplants the obligation of the state to fund education. So in other words, it's used for education, but indirectly. It's kind of like, it goes into the general fund, and then the state doesn't have to keep raising taxes or raising more money. They use that pot of money for some of the state aid. Matter of fact, in the state aid forms, when schools get their money, some of it is actually designated as lottery money, so it's identified separately. But it's all part of the same pool of money. So it's kind of like this. If I could get this lady to give me $10, and I could come up with the other 10, I could give you $20. So is she supporting you? So what they do is they sell lottery tickets to this lady over here, and she's giving me the lottery money, and I owe you $20. So now I only have to come up with 10 of my own, because I have 10 of her lottery dollars. That's how the lottery.
So Dr. Timms, the money after operational costs and winnings, do you have evidence of, or do you believe that all of that money goes to education, or it's impossible to tell?
It's impossible to tell. The money goes right into the general fund. So what they can do is they can say, how much did we make in the lottery this year? Say, $100 million. Okay, good. How much do we owe schools? We owe them $200 million. Good, then all we have to do is come up with another 100.
All you need is $1 and a dream.
Do you understand what I just said? So that's how it works. So what it does is it was a money-making method for the state to acquire money that they could say was for education. And yes, it does become part of education because they spend their other money on something else. Right? So it's kind of like when you go to the bank, if you brought your silver dollars to the bank today and you said, here's 100 silver dollars, put it in my account. Tomorrow when you go back, you will not get those 100 silver dollars back. It's commingled with all the rest of the money in the bank. But you'll get $100 back maybe, but it's not the exact same silver dollars you handed in. So there's a number of ways to look at this. All it is an income stream to the state, so it has to put up less money for education to get to the total. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this is about the new cell phone ban. I don't know if necessarily.
I think we said no more questions, didn't we? I'm sorry, I do apologize. Go ahead.
I don't know necessarily if you can answer that, but like maybe someone from the school district. Like, I was just wondering, I'm a senior at Proctor High School. So, I've been with my cell phone for 3 years, and I'll admit, like, it could be a distraction, and there's pros and cons to this ban. But, like, I feel like, like, there could be emergencies where, like, students may need their cell phones, or, like, they need to contact their parents immediately, but they can't get to the office, to call them. So I was just wondering, like, how would a school handle this? Like, or if a parent needs to call their children right away, like, how would a school handle this?
I worked with a lot of great administrators, and I trust the administrators are going to make sure that there's the ability to communicate if necessary in any certain setting. Anybody want to take that?
Yeah, so first thing I'll say that, as a district, our job is to make sure that we are in compliance with state law. Our elected official, Governor Kathy Hochul, has proposed a law. Our job is to uphold the state constitution and comply with all laws and regulations from the state. This is not something the district's brought on. This is coming from the governor's office. In addition to how we're going to operationalize that mandate, I'm going to allow Mike Ferraro here to talk, Chief of Operations, to talk a little bit about what that looks like in practice. But again, we are working within the constructs of the law in order to provide a distraction-free environment for all students.
So to answer your question, the phones are available throughout the building. You don't have to go to the main office. So we're working with staff now, and administrators, on what that looks like on a day-to-day basis. So each classroom is equipped to dial outside. Obviously, a teacher has a code to dial outside in case of an emergency. So you won't have to go to the office. We're setting up multiple phone lines inside each offices. We're doing it as we speak now. So there's more than one line for parents to get through to the phone, so they don't call and nobody's answering or it's busy. So we're adding multiple, I guess we'll call them cell phone policy lines to each main office. But I can assure you there's going to be clear communication when you need to have that communication with either your family or you're trying to get somebody. You're also going to have access to your phone throughout the day in case of an emergency. That's written in the policy too. You have to have access to that phone. So I don't know if that answered all of your question, but certainly you're going to be able to either receive or make an emergency phone call or a regular phone call if need be.
I just have something to add. So what if someone has, they need to monitor their diabetes on their phone? Are they allowed to raise?
Yeah, so the policy in the governor's policy and also in our adopted school board policy, there are exemptions for medical, transportation services. There's a couple other two in there. But yeah, if they're used for medical, you can get an exemption to carry the phone. But that doesn't mean if you had that exemption for that, that gives you the right to carry your phone and talk on it throughout the day. It would still have guidelines for the use of that phone throughout the day.
Just going to say one thing, because I know sometimes up here it can seem cold, especially when you're just getting answers of, we're going to have this for you. But I want you to know that we also understand, and I have a senior too, I have a junior, all of these students, that we want you to understand that we do know that it is going to be completely different. This is an experience that you've never had before. You've never entered school in your entire life without your cell phone. From the day you had your cell phone, you went to school with it. This has been something you've been accustomed to. So please understand too that all of us know how hard this is going to be on you guys. This is going to be a huge change. So there are all of these elements in place to help you, and you have your teachers and staff in all of these schools, and everybody understands as hard as it's going to be for everybody working there and the teachers, and this is new, and security collecting phones, and everybody that's installing all these lines and trying to come up with these plans so that this can happen. Just know that you are still in the back of our minds, and this isn't just a cold response. We are thinking about you, and you have a huge support behind you, because this is something completely new. Just like for me as a parent, it's the first time that I'm going to have my children in school that I'm used to, right? Texting, hey, such and such, like make sure your brother went home early today, you don't have to pick him up, or can you bring this person home, or don't forget you have this. I'm 100% guilty of being able to quickly reach out to my children and them as well. So for us parents, it's gonna be incredibly hard too, and just for you guys. But hopefully in the end, we're gonna see, right, something positive come out of this for you, and it's gonna be a different experience. But just know while they're telling you all of this that you are in our thoughts, and you do have a bunch of support behind you, because I know it's scary.
I just want to bring up one other thing. There is an exemption form that's available in the main office that the parent can fill out. Obviously, there's questions on there and stuff that will need to be provided with that form.
And not that it's going to make you feel any better, but these administrators are just as excited about this as it's no good deed goes unpunished. So I know. I taught before cell phones and I taught after. I prefer before. And again, we've had a lot of kids around this country really damaged as a result of the algorithms that exist there. As a biology teacher, I said, we are going through the largest experiment in the history of human beings by taking 11-year-olds and handing them the world when the majority of us in the room didn't have that. And it really has to do, for me, for the development of the human brain and how it works. And when it works, it's a beautiful thing. So I want to thank my school board members, Tennille and James, for being here. It's not an easy time to be a school board member, you know. It's like, it's like we're running for office. I don't know what you are thinking. Well, you do run for office. I want to thank Superintendent Spence and his team, certainly, for hosting us. And I wanted to thank our students, Heather Concepcion, for announcing me and representing the students so well, and your work as student council president. I want to thank my team for doing this. They do a great job. And listen, if there's any takeaways from this, certainly education is something that we should all value. We have great responsibility in it, and we've got to get it right, whether we're legislators, administrators, or teachers. And I think the people that are drawn to it, by and large, have really good intentions to get it right. If my office can be helpful in any way, that's what we're here for, and we want to be responsive to you. And I hope in your early experiences with us, if you've had it, we have. I appreciate you coming tonight. And since I see Stefan here with another comment, I don't know if you're going to beat All You Need Is a Dollar and a Dream, but I'll give you the chance to top it.
Do you have a Utica office?
I do have a Utica office. I do have a Utica office. There's a lot out there about that, of course, but we have a Utica office. We're in the state office building. Certainly, it has been open. I know some folks have said a few things about it, but listen, we're here to serve, and you can get to us in a number of different ways. Whichever way you do, internet, in-person meeting, our constituent coffees that are all around the district that my team does a lot of work on. Our senior fair in Oneida County, I think, is coming up on September 25th, and that's going to be at MVCC. We'll have lots of vendors there. I will be there, so I encourage everybody to come by. Sometimes I'm at mobile office hours. I'm always at that. We will have constituent coffees to continue as well. So please reach out to our office. The website is mannion.house.gov. If you go there, you're in the queue, and there's not 100 of us on the Mannion team, but the ones that are there make it seem like 100 because they're so responsive, and I'm proud of that because they do a great job and they represent me so well. So thank you all for coming here tonight. I really appreciate it. You could have done a lot of things on a Monday night, and here you are caring about public education like I do, and I appreciate that. Thank you.